because traditionally this was a in-person meet, and the lockdown gave an opportunity for us both to have participants from across the globe as well as have speakers from across the globe, and we are not limited to people who are in Bangalore. That gives us a larger opportunity to connect to alumni globally and to learn and get inspired by the work that's being done across. So today's topic is AgriTech. As mentioned by Udupa sir, we have had one session on AgriTech earlier in the year, but there is popular demand on AgriTech, and we have two speakers today. Our esteemed speakers are Mr. Shankar Kotian, techie turned farmer, who's going to talk about regenerative agriculture. And we have a young Nitk alumni, Shashikant Lawaniyan from the 2016 batch, founder of Shasymitra. His topic is redefining agriculture efficiency using machine learning. After that, we will move into a Q&A session, followed by a briefing by our Bangalore Chapter President, Mr. Basavajaj Diodar, followed by a vote of thanks by Apana Kotri sir and Udupa sir. Let's move to the next slide, Udupa sir. Some basic guidelines as usual. Please keep your audio on mute. If you have any question, you may type it on the chat window, or you can ask it in the Q&A session. Kindly don't interrupt the speaker when they are speaking. We will have a separate dedicated session for Q&A. And we do take a photo shoot once the Q&A is done. So at that point of time, you can switch on your videos. During the course of the event, it's your choice whether you want to keep your videos on or off, but do switch on when we have the photo session. So let's quickly jump into the topic. I just put some perspective. I'm no specialist in agriculture, but I think we all understand the challenges of agriculture. Just to give some perspective of why technology in agriculture. The global population is expected to be over 9 billion by the 2050s. So in about 20-30 years, there's going to be a significant increase in the population. So obviously this means that there is going to be scarcity of food. It is predicted that not just food, but all agricultural produce, there could be a scarcity. And like in any other industry, technological innovation is required primarily to, in a space like agriculture, to increase yield, efficiency, and profitability. It is predicted, in fact, that agri-tech industry itself has a potential of over 24 billion by revenue in India by 2025. And one of the reasons for a huge potential in India is that agriculture, while is the most employs the most number of people and is the largest sector, is also highly not very high on technology. And though there has been a lot of improvement over the years, there is a much larger scope for usage of technology, particularly even after the produce is there. There is a lot of wastage. We keep reading about how farmers have to just dump tomatoes when there's no yield or there's no supply chain logistics and so on. In fact, incidentally, there is I was just reading somewhere yesterday that between Jan and August 2021, agri startups have raised over 400 million, which is a threefold jump. Probably no other sector has had that kind of a jump in a short span over the last year. So 2020, 21, and now in 2020 to 21, there is a threefold jump in the startups, the money raised by startups in the agri-tech space. Now let's try and understand what the challenges of agriculture are. Obviously, it's very labor intensive. We all know that today, if anybody owns a small piece of farm, even if you have 4 coconut trees in your compound, you know how difficult it is to get somebody to even come and take the coconuts from you. All of us who live in the coastal region at least definitely know this challenge. Resource intensive, land, water, these are all scarce resources, and agriculture is a resource intensive, a natural resource intensive industry. Over the years, yes, when the agriculture revolution happened, there was a lot of euphoria around increased yields. But I think we all know the challenges of increasing yields through artificial means, to chemical fertilizers and pesticides and all of that. Not only is it causing harm to future generations in terms of allergies, in terms of disease and all of that of humans, as well as it's caused a lot of challenges on the land itself, and the yields have continued to reduce because of over exploitation. So there has to be a balance in terms of how much we want to exploit natural resources to produce our food and our other agricultural products. I think Shankar will be an expert on this. He's been doing this, and let's hear him out in terms of what this space is all about. We are all not experienced as much as him. He's really spent a lot of time, and he'll be some perspective today on that. Then there are natural challenges. We all know, and just as we were saying, yes, there are rains, and right now we are having unexpected rains. And I know farmers near my village are now saying the paddy, while they were able to, some were able to take the paddy out, the husk that's used as feed for cattle is now all washed away. It's all become wet and may not be usable. So there is a huge loss around here. The vagaries of nature around pests, around diseases. We all hear about how, one particular variant of a disease can completely wipe off the crop and reduce yields. The big challenge around agriculture is also that the commodities are perishable largely, right? So this means that unless there is an excellent supply chain, especially around products which are perishable and short lifespan like vegetables and fruits, the losses that happen in transit is quite huge. And I mentioned in India, apparently it's about 40% that goes wasted. And finally, the challenges around the producer unfriendly markets. And we've all seen this, even including the recent farm bills, which was trying to address some of this unfriendliness of the ecosystem itself, where farmers today get, from what I know, they probably get, if you are able to, as a farmer, if you're able to get anywhere more than 25% of the retail price, it's a good price. Like, for example, a coconut sells at 30 rupees in Bangalore. I'm sure a retailer, the farmer probably makes 10, 12 rupees at best, right? So there is a huge gap between because of the ecosystem, because of the middlemen. And there are a lot of startups today who are trying to address this space by taking the farm to fork kind of a model, where they're trying to get cut the number of middlemen in between, thereby assuring some kinds of price. Obviously, there are other areas where finance and so on is also there as to how farmers can leverage some of this. So let's quickly understand some space, some of the technologies and some of the areas in this space. We can move to the next slide, Urvashi. Areas for agriculture, AgriTech areas. Automation has been happening from time immemorial, right from the time of the invention of the plow and bullock cart, and all of those equipment that were used in the farms, to today, where a lot more technology is used. Smart farming around using intelligence of weather and predicting and how weather patterns are and what to plant and so on. Drones and satellites have become quite big. In fact, satellite has helped a lot of prediction in terms of weather. Drones today help. In fact, our very own Nitk department does this quite a bit to find the chlorophyll levels and the green cover around large tracts of land. Dr. Prithviraj and his drones fly on your farmland or a thing, and they can give you a good report. I have myself seen some of that. IoT sensors is another area where, because of the availability of connected devices today, a lot of automation can be achieved. I spoke about supply chain, big area where logistics, improvement in infrastructure around logistics can help get better price, lesser perishing of goods and so on, using better supply chain management with the help of technology. Transparency is a big issue, and it is predicted that startups can use, there are models being developed by startups to use blockchain technology, where the disintermediation can be done of some of these in between marketplaces and so on, using blockchain, whereas there can be transparency because everybody is seeing the same kind of record as against today, where money is given, money taken, but there is no trail of how it went in the whole business transaction. Other areas include vertical farming, where people want to get more yields, and also innovative finance. I think one of the models that a lot of other startups are trying to help is farmers do find it difficult to get finance, or if they have got finance, we hear about taking money from money lenders. They're unable to leverage their future potential produce with getting finance for that, and so on. So there are all these areas around agriculture challenges, agriculture technology usage, and I'm sure we'll get much more perspective today from our speakers on this. So at this juncture, it's my pleasure now to introduce our first speaker with that brief introduction. Our first speaker is Shankar Kotian. Shankar Kotian is from the 1996 batch, computers from NIT or KREC at that point of time. He spent a lot of time like many of us, in the technology industry from 1996 to almost 2012, which is about 16 years he spent at Infosys. He was a group project manager at Infosys. And I'm sure, like many of us, he found that it's a repetitive job where the charm of IT industry, when you're outside the IT industry, is very different. I can say for sure that when you're in the IT industry, because it does seem like a pretty mundane, mediocre job, which is highly glorified. Apologies to anybody who thinks IT industry does rocket science kind of work. Then I imagine that it's only 5% who do that kind of work. 95% does, very banal, predictive kind of work. He turned a farmer from 2012. He's done a lot of work in this space. He believes in going rather than sitting at the edges and trying to do something, actually getting on the ground. And he has a lovely farm around in Udupi district, which he's going to talk about and what he has been doing on that. So it's my pleasure to welcome you, Shankar. The stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjit, and very good morning to everyone. Let me share my slides first. All right. Can you see my screen and can you hear my voice?
We can hear you clearly. Unfortunately, I don't think we can see your screen. Can you do a screen share?
Can't see my screen yet, Sanjit?
No, I'm unable to see.
All right.
Shankar, do you want me to share this one presentation?
Yeah, that would be better.
Okay, I will do that. I will do that.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Give me seconds.
1 second. Just a minute.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Udupa. I think, yeah, let's stay put in this slide. Yeah, Sanjeev has given my introduction, so I'm not going to repeat it. Just that even though I quit my IT job in 2012, because of medical reasons, I couldn't start my agriculture venture immediately. So I had to take a rest about a couple of years, and then I started my farming venture very slowly from 2013, 2014 onward. So it's been a journey of close to 8 years now. And I will give a snapshot of my farm at the end of the slide show here. But very briefly, I'll touch upon it now. We started with organic farming and with the dairy farming, of course, with the areca nut, which is relevant in coastal area of Karnataka, coconuts, rubber, and so on. I also experimented with natural farming, no dig method, and a lot of other things. So I normally love to try a few different things and then see if how we can make the farming effort more efficient. In the process, what I've learned is that a lot of mainstream farming processes that we've been following, not just in number of years or decades, even thousands of years, is not all of them, or not more. I mean, most of them are not really right. In this presentation, you will see a lot of my thoughts are contrarian, but when the mainstream or the so-called this traditional process have not worked, I think we have to look at the other ways around. Okay, so that's where it leads all of us into regenerative agriculture, because of our farming practices, we have eroded our soil dramatically, and the ecology has been disturbed a lot, which means that we have to undo the wrongdoing so far. Right? So before we get into the details, I would like to give a bit of a dose of science on soil. So this is very important for us to understand in order to understand the regenerative agriculture subsequently. So, sir, if you can move on to the next slide, please. Many people think that soil is lifeless, but soil is so full of life. If you take fertile soil from a rainforest or any of the fertile farm, 70% of it is actually rock dust. This is the dust that has been formed by the action of wind, sun, and rain on rocks. Basically powder. All right, and then 20% of the soil is actually nothing but water and air combined. Okay, when it rains, it will have more water. When it is little dry, then it will have more air. But it's basically a mixture of that. Third component is, and the most important component is the microbes. Okay, by weight, it is 8% of the soil is actually microbes. When I say microbes, it's bacteria, fungi, nematodes, and so on. But most of those are the ones which help us see the magic that happens in farming. Okay, and the last one, but equally important, is the soil carbon. So all the biodegradable items that we have to put into the soil for us to, it's basically as a food for the microbes and so many other things as well. So 8% microbes and 2% soil carbon. I mean, it can be more than 2% as well. The higher, the better. And 20% water and air. These three components are extremely important for us to have a fertile soil and for us to really get the outputs from the farming. Now, you may be surprised to see that 1 gram of fertile soil has 30 million microbes. So these microbes is whom we actually have to feed when we are doing the farming. We don't have to feed the roots. In fact, roots do not take the food directly from us. Okay. All the biodegradable materials, all the manure that we put in, they are actually taken by the microbes, and then they are microbes are the one which transform into the salts and other things which can be directly absorbed by the roots. There is quite a bit of a symbiotic relationship between the microbes and roots. I mean, if as per the scientists, the soil scientists, the micro population around the roots is completely phenomenal compared to the rest of the soil. So the roots secrete a lot of fluids, and then microbes take those fluids, and in return, microbes get the minerals from the rock dust as well as the soil carbon and give it back to the roots. So it's not just about microbes and roots. That's how the nature works. Okay? In case of nature, everything is interdependent, and it's a circle. Okay, one microorganism, one organism helps the other one, and so on. So this is a brief about the soil, the fertile soil that is very essential for the successful farming. Now, one other thing that I want to just touch upon is about the earthworms, because this also plays a huge role. Unfortunately, this has been destroyed and neglected because of the chemical farming. Now, earthworm is called as farmer's friend. It can go as deep as 15 feet in the land, and every earthworm, especially indigenous ones, the desi ones, they go 8 times up and down, 15 feet deep. So they also go laterally. So every time they take different routes, and when they make holes, they also secrete certain fluids which gets attached to the holes, and they're almost like micropipes. And now what this does is it basically helps the loosen the soil. It helps the roots get into the get down and then get the nutrients better. More importantly, when it rains, the water percolates down and then it increases the water table. So termites, is known as, especially if it is not inside the house, it's very beneficial. It breaks down all the broken, dead branches of the trees and so on. So both of these, and as well as many other insects, helpful insects, they all decompose the material so that it can be eaten by the microbes and in turn by the trees and the plants. Now, in Indian context, if you look at the scenario before 1960s, everybody was doing organic farming. In the sense, obviously there was no chemical fertilizer, so they were. It was naturally organic farming. So most of them, or everyone, had livestock. And most of them were also doing integrated farming, in the sense multi-cropping and so on. And this is when the paths got changed. And I would like to go to the next slide, sir. Udupa, sir, if you can take me to the next slide. Yeah. So since 1960s, in the name of Green Revolution, the chemical fertilizers were promoted very heavily by the agricultural extension centers, and because of the ease of application of fertilizers, so a lot of farmers turned into this, and then in the process, what was integrated farming earlier, okay, when I say integrated farming, you would have a forest, little bit of forest attached to your farmland. You take the dried leaves and and all the decomposable materials. You have paddy field, you have vegetables for yourself, you will have fruits and so on, and then you will have chicken, livestock. So basically it's all interconnected, and input of one goes output of one goes into as an input for another one, and so on. So since the chemical fertilizers were introduced, so a lot of people switched from integrated farming into single crop cultivation. They also moved away from livestock farming. Deforestation happened a lot. And because of the cheap oil, the fossil fuel, the tractors came into picture, and then deploying started happening. When I say deploying, the current set of tractors that is used, they can plow as deep as 1 feet. The net result is that the topsoil is normally 3, 4, or 5, or 6 inches, and when you are making it upside down, you are really disturbing the soil structure completely, and you are exposing the microbes to the sunlight, and you are basically killing the soil life in itself. So what has happened in last 4 or 5 decades is the soil has eroded a lot, and because people have moved away from livestock farming, the increase in the fertility of the soil has not happened. Now, I'll touch upon the importance of livestock farming very briefly. A manure of a cow, for example, it has got 10 to 20% more microbes than the fertile soil. So what happens is that if you put manure into the soil, it increases the microbes population. And as you know, microbes, they multiply every 20 minutes, 30 minutes, depending on the types of the microbes. And hence it becomes, it's an exponential increase in the number of microbes and the fertility and so on. So if you move away from livestock farming, and if you move away from putting the organic manure, so you're essentially slowly killing the fertile soil. Now, if you put only chemical fertilizers, what happens is that the microbes which are in the fertile soil, they cannot tolerate this. And in addition, if you don't put biodegradable materials, so they don't get any food at all. So what happens is that most of the microbes die, and maybe only anaerobic microbes which are deep down the soil, they may live for some time. Now, because of the monocropping, because of the lack of fertile soil and so on, what has happened, as Mr. Sanjeet mentioned, even though it gave quick yields in the beginning, but slowly the yields started dropping. And because you are not giving the balanced food for the plants, so they start becoming sick. When the plants become sick, that's when the insects, pests starts attacking. Just like humans, I mean, when we are not healthy, when our immunity goes down, we get attacked by the virus and bacteria. So similarly, so when it happens, people started applying pesticides. Now, pesticides, the problem is that it not only kills the bad guys, but also kills the good guys. According to the scientists, there are about 40 to 50,000 insects, and out of which only around 300 to 400 insects are pests. Remaining are good ones. So just look at the percentage of the villains out there. So it's very, very low. So if you have to kill only those villains, so you're also killing the other ones. I just have to stress upon another point, is that pesticides not only kill the pests, they also get into the food that animals eat and we eat. Just to give an instance, in my area, the coconut farmers, they use a pesticide called Paradan. Now, what has been learned by the scientists is that if you apply Paradan today, even after 45 days, if you pluck a tender coconut and if you drink the tender coconut, you can find the traces of Paradan in the tender coconut water. So that's after 45 days. So essentially, means that if you use pesticides, you are going to consume it as well, unknowingly. Similarly, cases with the herbicides. If people have to do away with the weeds, they have started using herbicides. One of the famous herbicide is called Roundup from multinational giant called Monsanto. If you Google, you can hear a lot of horror stories about that. So chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides have done no good to the fertile soil. In fact, they have started eroding. So what happens is that, in the previous slide, you had seen that a fertile soil should have water, air, microbes, as well as biodegradable material, which is soil carbon. If all of these go away, then what is left out in the soil is nothing but the rock dust. And that is exactly what has happened. Since there is no soil carbon, it becomes so intact, it becomes like a concrete. When it rains, water does not percolate down. Instead, it flows, and while it's flowing, it also takes the topsoil. That's why you see that in a well-forested area, if it rains, in the creeks nearby, you see only fresh water, clear water. But in a deforested area or in a cities or towns, you see the rainwater that's going down the creeks or the drainages, they're all colored with full of dust. So it means that the soil is getting out every year. So which is what is happening in the last few decades. What is from the food scientists? What we all take almost 1 kg of food every day, and as per the food scientists, 1 kg of food requires about 25 kg of topsoil degraded, as per the current traditional farming methods. So just imagine the number of the amount of topsoil that's getting eroded in a year when 8 billion population is consuming the food. So one other point that I missed out telling is that in the traditional agriculture, what the agriculture extensions ask us to do is that use NPK, that is nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, plus 16 micronutrients, which is nothing but calcium, zinc, boron, and so on, copper, and so on. Now, is that sufficient? Because by using the scientific method, if you look at any vegetables, tomatoes or brinjal, it is found to have about 50 minerals. But using the chemical farming, if we apply only NPK and 16 micronutrients, where is the brinjal going to get the remaining 40 odd, 30 odd nutrients? So obviously, we can't be doing the farming in a dissective manner. We should look at the whole picture, and we have to go by the nature's law and do the way how it really works in the nature. I mean, for example, if you look at the Western Ghats, the forest, right? If you walk barefoot on that, you feel like you're walking on a mattress. It's because that's how smooth the fertile soil is, and that is not the case in most of the farmlands now. So, in a nutshell, what has happened is that the soil has been degraded. There is absolutely no soil carbon. A fertile soil, which was supposed to have had about 2 to 3% of soil carbon, now it is, most of the farmlands have less than 0.3%, which means that because of the absence of soil carbon, the soil is getting compacted very heavily. And in addition, the usage of heavy machinery is also causing that. So what happens is that, one of the famous, I can't recollect the name, famous French scientist had said that if the soil health is very good, then you don't have to take care of the health of animals and people living in that farm. So now that the soil health is gone for a toss, so obviously it is affecting the animal and human health. So obviously now I talked about the green revolution since 1960s and so on. Even though people were doing organic farming before the 1960s, but if you look at the history of civilization, multiple civilizations have vanished in last 10,000 years because of the wrong agricultural practices and not taking care of the topsoil. So even though they were using livestock, they were doing the integrated farming alongside. They have not really taken care of the topsoil. This is pretty evident if you go to the Google. So it's available, a lot of information on the why some of the civilizations have disappeared. So now, so it doesn't mean that the future is bleak, because soil is easy to be destroyed, but it is equally easy to be rebuilt as well. Now, I think what we all have to do is that for our own sake, as well as for the next generations and for the future, we have to undo and we have to rebuild the soil. This is where I would like to very briefly discuss about the regenerative agriculture. Now, the very first point about regenerative agriculture is, as you rightly guessed, it's about soil. We have to improve the soil. We have to increase the biodegradable material in the soil, which is nothing but the soil carbon, and automatically the microbes will increase, and it will start holding the water and air and so on. So then it becomes the ideal fertile soil. There are multiple ways of doing that in a larger areas where you have livestock. So basically you have to grow grass. The livestock, let the livestock eat the grass and drop the manure, and this cycle goes on. Even though the grass is eaten by the livestock, what you see is only from the top of the land, but beneath the land, it's almost like a mirror image. It's a huge root structure below the grass, below the land, that keeps on dying, and then it keeps on regenerating. So which means that if you have a perennial grass, the livestock and the humans and all that, they can consume the top part of it, but the below part, the grass is also feeding them continuously. That's one aspect. Second is that perennial crops, especially the fruits, fruit trees and so on. So where you don't have to regrow or replant every year. So this is where it drops its own leaves, and then it maintains the moisture. One aspect that I want to tell you is that a native tree the root structure is so large during the rainy season and beyond that, it has the ability to hold about 600 liters of water, a native tree. So having the forest, a small forest of their own in the farmland, if not the forest, at least the native trees along the fences and along the internal roads, that will help a lot. Now, these are on the larger scale, but even in the smaller scale, if you're having your own vegetable garden or a market garden, you can create composting using the latest technologies. Fast composting methods are available, and you can do a vegetable garden without digging. There are methods available. I'll touch upon that subsequently in the next slide. So these are the techniques where you have to improve the soil. The moment the soil health is improved, the rest of the things will slowly start falling into place. Water is a big issue. We all know that, but that's also gets resolved by the interventions that we can do. The next point is equally important. It's called holistic management. Now, this is it's actually a decision-making framework. It's a lot of work being done by on Mr. called Alan Savory, AllanSavory. He's a Zimbabwean rancher. This particular decision framing framework, making framework, it started off for livestock grazing, but it's equally applicable for one's personal life as well as for business. What it means is that when you start taking decisions in whether your own life or farm or business, you just don't look at individual items. You take a holistic picture. You define what are the different stakeholders, and when you take decisions, you find out what are the impacts on each of them, and then take a conscious decision. So, especially in the context of farming, we have to, whenever we make a decision, we have to ensure that it has a positive effect on the farmer's life and the land. When I say land, it's not just our land, it's also neighbor's land and the habitats in that. When I say habitats, it's livestock as well as the insects, the birds, and so on. Then the economy, right? How does it affect the consumers that we have, whom we supply to, and so on. So we have to take holistic picture and then take a decision. So that's the next one. What takes care of in that is also that automatically you take a decision saying that multi-cropping is the way to go, but not the monocrop. Then the third point is locally managed inputs and outputs, in the sense we should try to have either zero input or get the locally available inputs. Not really spend too much of petrol and diesel and buy inputs from far off places. Similarly, whatever produce that we have, we should try to deliver to local consumers and directly to the consumers as much as possible.
Shankar,
yeah.
just to remind on the time, because we're a bit over time. So,
all right, okay.
Yeah, no problem. Go ahead. Thank you.
So next is the reduced oil, financials, and technology inputs. So these are the pretty straightforward ones, in the sense fossil fuels is not the way to go, and so is the high capital intensive farms. And then whenever whatever produce that we have, it is better certified by the customers rather than some organic standards, because that way we don't have to incur the cost, as well as there are returning customers. The word of mouth is most important than some far off organization out there. So when we play such a game where we really involve ourselves, our own livestock, our land, and the end consumers, and when we play a game in such a way that everybody wins, then this becomes sustainable. And that's the way forward is what I believe. So in a nutshell, what I mean to say is that we have to forego the methods that have been relevant in the last few decades and whatever centuries. Instead, we should focus. I mean, everybody has to become a soil farmer first place, and then holistic picture is what is very important. We should take decisions holistically, not in silos. And if these two things, or some of the other points as well, if they are taken care of, then I think we are going to leave the land in much better shape than we received the younger next generation and the future. Okay. And just a snapshot, even though I have talked a lot about regenerative farming, now this is, I have not been doing it from day one. So this is what I've learned in the last 8 years. My farm has been no chemicals right from day one, and 20% of my farm is forest. I have indigenous cows, deer from Gujarat, as well as Malnad Gidda from here. I mainly rear them for manure, and milk is my byproduct. I sell the milk directly to consumers every day using the electric vehicle, which means that I also adopt and not averse to technologies. We use drip irrigation, we use electric fencing for the goats which are free range, and we also use biogas. Most of our cooking and as well as our labor cooking is done by the biogas. We also have commercial crops as coconut, arecanut, and rubber. All of them, are done using organic farming, and we deliver all our food generated directly to consumers wherever possible. So that's the snapshot of my farm, and if there are any questions, I think that's to be taken at the end of the session. I hope I've been clear, and if there are any questions, I'll take up then. Thank you all.
You're supposed to show the farm, no? Pictures of the farm.
Yeah, I think I'll share it offline subsequently in the group.
Sure, Shankar. If you have it, you can show it now or in the Q&A session. Thank you so much. It was a very insightful topic for us. Most of us think farming, I think most in this group, at least I would vouch for a lot of people, have very less understanding of farming as such and soil as particular. And I think you provided such wonderful insight into how soil plays such an important role and kind of made us understand how less we know about all of this. It was a very, very insightful and well detailed out talk from you. I thank you for that. Let's hold on till our next speaker finishes and then we can have a Q&A session. Thank you again. We'll go to the next speaker now. Dupa sir, can you move to the next slide? Our next speaker is a young alumni from Nitk, Shashikant Lawaniyan. He's a founder of Shasymitra. He graduated from Nitk in 2016 with mechanical engineering. Post that, he's done a MA from Dr. B.R. Ambedkar University, Agra on rural sociology. So he's going to talk to us about his venture, which has around machine learning usage in agriculture. So over to you, Shashikant. Let's hear what innovations you're bringing in the field of agriculture.
Thank you, sir. Can you, sir, put my slides?
Udupa sir, can you please?
Yeah, I will just a minute.
Good morning to sir. I hope you are doing all great. As you know, my name is Shashikant. Today I'm going to talk briefly about my company Shasymitra Private Limited. It's an AgriTech startup where we use data and machine learning to assist farmers to grow healthy and high quality crops, also helping to them get best price from their crops from the manufacturers. Next slide, please. Next one, sir.
Okay.
Next one.
After this one.
This is our team. Next one, please. Our mission is to leverage the data and technology to create a strong support system in agriculture for our Indian farmers that will make farming more predictable and profitable, empowering our farmers throughout the nations. Can we speak in Hindi, sir?
You want to speak in Hindi? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, sir. Actually, I will be more comfortable in Hindi.
No problem. Go ahead.
Yeah. Farmers suffering more risk and uncertainty and guidance, exploitation of काफी middlemen. फिर भी उनके कठिन परिश्रम के बाद भी आज खाना उनकी हमारी टेबल पर उन्हीं के कारण. No, sir. This is our advisory service.
Should I go back, Bob?
No. This one is correct, sir, right now.
Okay.
These are the services where advisory and crop plan, जहां हम step by step किसानों को crop growth के बारे में गाइड करते हैं, and crop doc में मशीन लर्निंग की हेल्प से हम किसानों को क्रॉप्स के प्रोटेक्ट करते हैं फ्रॉम द डिजीजेस एंड पेस्ट, इन्फेक्ट्स एंड वीड से। सस्य कार्ड की हेल्प से हम क्रॉप्स को सेल करते हैं टू द मैन्युफैक्चरर्स विद बेस्ट प्राइस। नेक्स्ट वन। हमारी सर्विस कैसे फंक्शन करती है? जब फार्मर हमसे जुड़ता है, कोई भी फार्मर, तो सबसे पहले हम उस फार्मर्स के फार्म पे जाते हैं, फिर विजिट करते हैं, फिर हम फार्म्स का उनके वाटर का एंड सॉइल का सैंपल लेकर उनको चेक करके एक सॉइल हेल्थ कार्ड बनाते हैं, पर्टिकुलरली फार्म बाई फार्म का। फिर उस सॉइल हेल्थ कार्ड की सहायता से हम उन फार्म्स को ना एक बेस्ट क्रॉप्स का ऑप्शन देते हैं कि इसमें कौन सी क्रॉप्स बेस्ट ग्रो की जा सकती हैं अकॉर्डिंग टू सॉइल हेल्थ कार्ड। फिर उसी क्रॉप्स के अकॉर्डिंग उस फार्मर को ना हम एक पर्सनलाइज्ड क्रॉप प्लान देते हैं स्टेप बाय स्टेप, जिससे फार्मर उसको प्रॉपर डोजेस फर्टिलाइजर्स के, प्रॉपर डोजेस ऑफ इरिगेशन, इन सब के एक प्रकार के एडवाइजरी प्रोवाइड कराते हैं क्रॉप प्लान के अंदर। और क्रॉप डॉक्टर किसानों को वो डिजीज, कौन सा डिजीज इसमें हुआ है, कौन सा डिजीज कब होने वाला, पूरा एक सिस्टमेटिक ढंग से उसे प्रोवाइड कराते हैं, जिसमें हम पॉसिबली उसको क्रॉप्स के डिजीज का इन्फेक्शन हुआ है तो उसके कितने डोजेस में कौन सी हर्बिसाइड्स लगाई जाएगी, कौन सी उसमें पेस्टिसाइड लगाई जाएगी, ये सब हम मैनुअली उन्हें बताते हैं जाकर। और उनके क्योर भी बताते हैं, जो केमिकल क्योर हो सकते हैं और होम रेमेडीज भी हो सकती हैं। नेक्स्ट वन। सस्य कार्ड की सहायता से हम लोग मैन्युफैक्चर की डिमांड के अकॉर्डिंग क्रॉप को ग्रो कराते हैं, फिर उस स्टैंडर्ड के अकॉर्डिंग किसानों का प्रोडक्ट अपने फार्म पे हब पर कलेक्ट करके उसको रिफाइनिंग, उसकी ग्रेडिंग करना, उसके मॉइस्चर कंटेंट पे लेवल पे लेके आना, फिर उसको ना सीधा डायरेक्टली मैन्युफैक्चर को हम सप्लाई करते हैं उस चीज को। नेक्स्ट वन सर। यस सर। अब तक हमारे पास 350 से प्लस ना फार्मर्स जुड़ चुके हैं, जिसमें से मैं एक अपने हैप्पी फार्मर की स्टोरी के बारे में थोड़ा बताना चाहूंगा। अभिषेक वरुण नाम का एक फार्मर है फिरोजाबाद से, जो पैडी, आलू और वीट उगाता है। तो वो साधारणतः खेती करता था अब तक। तो जैसे सर ने बताया सॉइल की हेल्थ की वैल्यू होती है, तो वो क्या ना साधारणतः वो करता था अनवांटेड डोजेस में हर्बिसाइड्स लगा देना, फर्टिलाइजर लगा देना, जिससे ना सॉइल की हेल्थ खराब होती जा रही थी। बट वो जब हमसे जुड़ा ना, तो उसको क्या है ना, हमने प्रॉपर गाइडेंस दिया कि इसमें कब और किस मात्रा में डोज लगाना है, कितना फार्म यार्ड मैनुअल लगाना है, जिससे क्या है ना सॉइल की हेल्थ बराबर बनी रहेगी। वो जुड़ने के बाद वो उसने क्या किया, हमारे पूरे प्लान का उसने सर्विस ली। आज उसकी हमने क्रॉप्स को अच्छे से मेंटेन कराया, गाइडेंस दी, जिस कारण से उसकी क्रॉप्स को हमने लगभग मान लीजिए आप 10 से 8% तक उसको प्रॉफिट दिलाई। केआरबी जैसी बड़ी कंपनी, इंडिया गेट बासमती राइस कंपनी है ना, उसको हमने पूरा प्रोडक्ट अपने एरिया का सब माल उनको सप्लाई किया, जिससे उन्हें 8 से 10% प्रॉफिट पर हुई, तथा 10% से करीबन उनका प्रोडक्शन में इंक्रीजमेंट हुआ। अभी हम यूपी के वेस्टर्न यूपी में, जहां हम सीड फाइनेंसिंग, जैसे क्या ना केसीसी होती है, तो केसीसी फार्मर्स को ना बहुत ज्यादा सफर करना पड़ता है फाइनेंसिंग के लिए। तो अभी हमने स्टार्ट किया कि सीड फाइनेंसिंग करते हैं कैशलेस फाइनेंस के रूप में। उनको सीड प्रोवाइड कराते हैं कंपनियों से ही लेके, और फिर उन्हें ना फर्टिलाइजर भी प्रोवाइड कराते हैं। तो अभी हम लगभग 150 फार्मर्स को ना यहाँ पर सीड फाइनेंसिंग कर रहे हैं। अभी पोटैटो में किया है, और मैनुअली विजिट करके उनको सॉइल हेल्थ कार्ड बना के दे चुके हैं अभी तक। नेक्स्ट वन। हेलो। यस सर। That's our project, and thank you for giving me a chance to present in front of you. I hope I will be able to connect with my fellow Natians to collaborate and work together. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shashikant.
Thank you, sir.
Wishing you all the very best. This is a young startup. I think you started. When did you start?
Last year, sir.
Well, last year. So obviously,
yes,
you have started in the time of the
pandemic
also.
Yes, sir.
So
yes, sir.
wishing you all the best on that. We'll quickly go to the Q&A session. I think there were a handful of questions on the chat window. Let me just pull them up. There's a question from Umakant Naik. Is it viable to switch to 100% organic farming? Can we grow enough adequately to feed the entire population? Sri Lanka is currently experiencing a crisis because of ban on imports of fertilizer and the government mandate to adopt 100% farming. So I leave it to our experts here. Shankar, do you want to take a shot at?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I will take it up. I think Sri Lanka's example is slightly not the correct one, because what Sri Lanka did is an abrupt change. One midnight they said, we are going to go into organic farming. So that is not possible, because when we have been doing the chemical farming for a number of years, so the switch also has to be gradual one. Okay, so if we do a gradual switch, then it is definitely possible. Now, the second question, or the first question, was about, can we feed the entire world? Yes, it is possible, but it has to be as much as possible the localized farming and localized supply chain. Okay, localized production, localized supply chain, and bearing some exceptions. It is definitely possible, and then there are models that have been proven this as well, on a small scale, of course. But if this is repeated everywhere, it is quite possible to do that, and yields are comparable or even higher than the conventional farming in case of organic farming.
Interesting. Thanks, Shankar. There was a question again by here saying that, is it the same as permaculture? Presumably what you were talking about in terms of regenerative farming, is it the same as permaculture?
Yeah, it has permaculture as an ingredient in itself, but permaculture focuses more on absolutely, no inputs from the outside, and it is little. It has a little narrow definition, whereas this is broader one. When I say regenerative agriculture, permaculture also takes care of the soil health gratefully. Okay, but it is more about self-sufficient and feeding yourself and so on. Whereas in case of regenerative agriculture, you also take care of the ecology and ensure that you also feed other people, not just yourself. You look at what is required by the local consumers, and produce excellent quality food, and then deliver it to them directly as far as possible. We're cutting the middleman.
Okay, thanks, Shankar. There's a question for Shashikant. What is your business model? Shashikant, आपका business model क्या है? आप farmers से कुछ commission लेते हैं? आपका company कैसे चलता है? आप उसको कोई आपको financer है? आपको farmers से कुछ commission लेते हैं? आपकी company का जो income है वो कैसे आता है?
Sir, 1% service charges from the farmer and 1% service charges from the manufacturer लेते हैं from.
तो आप अगर इंडिया गेट को से 1% लेते हैं और 1% फार्मर से लेते हैं प्रोड्यूस, और आपके एडवाइजरी के लिए वो सेपरेटली पे करते हैं क्या?
इट्स अ फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट सर.
आप एडवाइजरी फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट देते हैं और
यस सर.
और जो बेचते हैं वो 1% इनसे लेते हैं और 1% जो खरीदता है उनसे लेते हैं.
यस सर.
ओके, एंड आपकी टीम कितनी बड़ी है अभी?
सर 5 फ्रेंड्स हैं इसमें वर्किंग सर. 2 अनऑफिशियली हैं और 2 ऑफिशियली हैं.
अच्छा, और आप एक्सपर्ट्स को लाते हैं बाहर से? यू गेट सम एक्सपर्ट्स और यू हैव?
यस सर.
Okay, nice. There is a question by Nataraja Upadhyay, Shashikant.
Yes,
what is the machine learning aspect that you were talking about?
सर जो मशीन लर्निंग होता है सर, जैसे प्लांट्स में जो क्रॉप में डिजीज होते हैं ना, तो उसका फोटो क्लिक करने से हम उस डिजीज को बता सकते हैं कि ये डिजीज कौन सा है और इसका क्योर क्या क्या हो सकते हैं थ्रू द ऐप.
This is the app that you have developed, or you are using somebody else's app? आप कोई
No,
दूसरा
sir. अभी राइट नाउ डेवलपिंग. अभी जो हमने एडमिन साइट से हमने बना ली है अपनी ऐप, अभी कस्टमर्स के लिए डेवलप कर रहे हैं सर.
You're developing an app which takes photographs and which is then able to feed that data and then do analysis on that using machine learning to predict the diseases on the crops.
And yeah, sir.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. There are a handful more questions. There's a question around vertical farming agrovoltaics. Shankar, what is your view on that? There's a question.
Yeah, see, I have not studied much about vertical farming, but essentially what it means is that, when it comes to farming, I may sound philosophical, but that's the truth. Farming is nothing but making the sunlight work for us. So in vertical farming, you are taking care of, you're ensuring that, wherever the sunlight is there, you make it work for you in a limited space. So yeah, it is possible. It is obviously it's going to be a little costlier than the traditional ground-based farming, because you'll have to have certain equipment for that and so on, I guess. But yes, as long as you're using soil, it's possible. It's definitely okay.
And presumably there's a question around hydroponic farming, and I presume that is also using a lot more inputs, right? I mean, in terms of
yeah. See, I think my view is that soil has been the medium for all the plants and other things. Okay, there are very few exceptions. Okay, where plants grow only on water. Okay. And I think we should leave it to that. We should leave it to the nature. And if you're trying to grow fruits and vegetables and flowers and all that only on water, you are going against the nature, and then there will be repercussions at the subsequently. Now, just to give an instance, I think Australia was one of the leading country which was which was producing fodder for the cows or for the livestock using hydroponics. Okay, and they discontinued after a while. So I don't have exact reasons, but what has been said is that there are either nutrient, they lack nutrients over a period of time and so on. But essentially, you are trying to bypass soil as a medium and giving water, and then you start injecting the water with the limited set of nutrients. Okay, as I said in one of my slides, that either you give NPK and some of the micronutrients, limited number. Whereas soil, since it is whole in nature, it will make out saying that what nutrients required for which plant, and then that availability will be ensured by the ecosystem beneath the soil. So my view is that hydroponics is like going against nature, and it will not be sustainable.
Yeah, thanks, Shankar. Indeed, I mean, it is artificial in the way you're approaching it, right? So
correct.
It would be a bit like bodybuilding using steroids or something like that. Very very crude analogy, but I would think that it falls in that space. Though it may give a lot of yield and so on, but and of course it has a lot of infrastructure input or cost also, right? So,
just to add on to that, Sanjeev, I mean, see, we as a human beings, we can eat variety of food, and it goes through our digestion system, and then goes through the blood and all the cells and all that. But using IV, just like doctors give glucose, we can also pass.
Shankar, you've gone on mute. Yeah, now it's okay. Continue.
Yeah, so we can also start giving all the nutrients directly to the blood, using IV. Okay, just like how doctors give glucose. So that's a choice that we have, right? It's a crude analogy again, but we have to follow the process for which our body or the nature or the plants have been designed to, but not take a drastic different path.
Absolutely, I think that's a very important perspective, that anybody, like I've heard people can survive just using protein shakes and all of that, but that's probably no way to live, right? So there is one question around what are your plans further, from Nataraj Upadhyay, who's also a city forester. He's developed a big forest. I don't know if you know him personally, but he's developed a forest on top of his house itself and around his house. He's asking you a question, saying that you're quite evolved in terms of, you're quite a realized soul, and he wants to understand what your future plans. Shankar.
Okay. Yeah. So I think it's a good question. I wanted to cover it myself. Someone forgot. My idea is to.
Shankar, you've gone on mute.
Sorry.
Yeah, please continue.
Yeah, there's a call. My idea is to develop a farm which is slightly model in nature, and then it should be profitable. In the sense, I should be able to make myself money for a decent living, and I should be able to have good food for myself, and I should be able to, very high quality food for the returning customers.
It's gone.
There are repeated calls from someone. Anyway, at the same time, taking care of the soil, taking care of the ecology, and the habitats and the livestock and so on. So this is my goal, and if I am successful in doing that, then I'm sure there will be people who will emulate. In my past journey of last 8 years, so I have had self-help groups, I have had farmer groups, I have had students visiting me, and I have been giving talks to colleges and so on, especially about the rural entrepreneurship and agriculture in specific. So, but my learning has been evolving, and then yet to find a model where saying that, look, this is going to work. Okay, and I think the moment I do that, I think hopefully I can percolate down to the other farmers, and hopefully the farming is going to be interesting as well.
Thanks, Shankar. That's insightful. I keep the floor open now. If anybody has a question directly to ask, I think I have asked most of the questions, all the questions that have come on the chat. There is a question: is Jeev Amrut good for soil and plant health? Any views on that? Any of you?
Yeah. See, Jeev Amrut is nothing but a culture. Okay. For example, if you boil 10 liters of milk in the night, and then you put just quarter spoon of culture, curd. Next day morning, the entire thing becomes curd, right? All the 10 liters of milk becomes curd. So similarly, Jeev Amrut is a highly dense culture of microbes. If I have time, maybe I'll explain how it is prepared also shortly. So when you apply this to a soil which has moisture in it, and which has enough shade in it, and which has enough biodegradable material in that, so then the microbes from this Jeev Amrut get into that, and then they start working on that. They'll start degrading, they'll start consuming and converting into nutrients for the plants. So yes, it is definitely helps, but if the usage of the Jeev Amrut is to be successful, then there are certain prerequisites. One is the land to which you are applying. It has to have moisture, it has to have mulching, it has to have biodegradable material added to that. That means soil carbon. Then it will work.
Thanks. As mentioned, I think we are through with the Q&A session. If there is any question anybody would like to ask, they could ask directly now. If not, I will request, give it half a minute. If there is nobody else who's asking a question.
Ranjit, Nataraja here. I would like to ask a question to Shankar. It's more inspired by his answer to my question. Or someone else's question. As part of talking how to make organic farming sustainable, he did highlight that local availability is the key, so that the costs of transportation doesn't become prohibitive. I'm more interested as to, has there been enough work as to how can we come up with a global architecture of diet, so that locally we can produce and supply. At the same time, globally we can manage the food and nutrition. Has there been any work going on in alignment with this dream of organic farming? Otherwise, it sounds a bit unsurmountable challenge. So I just wanted to share my feeling here. Thank you.
Sir, I think what your question is that if we produce it locally and then using the global supply chain, can we meet the demands of the global consumers? Is that?
No, sir. No. My question is thinking in favor of what you suggested, which is we should locally grow and locally supply, because there is so much variation locally throughout the world. We need a global map of what is the nutrition need and how we can meet it, then apply it locally. So we need a global architecture of food nutrition guidance to enable that. So has there been a global map of this available, so that locally people can become intelligent and make your dream successful? That was my question.
Yeah, I completely understood, sir. See, farming is a very complex process, okay, and it is natural as well, so it's quite unpredictable, and it is also, there are a lot of local parameters associated with that. What works here in coastal Karnataka will not work in plains of Hassan or Bangalore or Mysore. Okay, so as much as I would like to, I'm just a drop in the ocean, but as much as I would like to come up with a template, but it is, I would say it is impossible, sir. Okay, but what is important is that everyone understand the concepts of the holistic management, as well as the how to preserve the ecology and so on, and apply these concepts and evolve with what is best done in that local place, and what is best done using the local climate and the native plants and the livestock and so on. Okay, I think it's almost impossible to come up with the global architecture. It should be understanding the concept and come up with really local templates, I would say. Yeah, solutions.
Thanks, Shankar. I think we have that was probably the last question, because we don't have time to take more questions. Contact details and the presentations will be shared. I request alumni to contact the people directly or send further inquiries or questions to us, and we can coordinate the same.
Sanjeev,
at this juncture, I would like to call upon. Yeah, Sanjeev, sure. Please
there was a request for photos from my farm, so I could forward it to Mr. Udupa subsequently, and then it can be shared.
Okay.
Yeah.
We will share it in the group later.
Yeah.
Okay.
I request, thanks Shankar, we'll definitely share it. I request our senior alumni, V. Ramakrishna, to speak about NITK Sneha.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you, Sanjeet. Thank you, Udupa. So thank you, Shankar and Shashikant. Both of you actually qualify for maybe a honorary PhD for the wisdom that you seem to have accrued over such a short period of time. So thank you so much. That was excellent. Okay, I'll just take maybe less than 2 minutes trying to explain what is coming up with the NITK Sneha Education Group. Firstly, later this month, we have an invited speaker, a 1996 illustrious alumnus. Maybe Sanjeet, your classmate? He's
No, he's junior to me. I'm 94 batch.
Okay,
he's junior to me,
right.
but I'm
okay.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
But if,
And so he is currently at the Azim Premji University. And so he's going to talk to us about social change through education. And all of you are very familiar with the fact that the Premji Foundation is synonymous with education and improving educational outcomes in the country. So that is so all of you are most welcome. We will actually be posting these these invitations and the posters in the various NITK alumni groups through Panakotri sir. Next off is in the months of December and January, we have dedicating these 2 months, the month of December for maths education with children, and January for science education. So February 1st is celebrated as the National Science Day, and that is in keeping with it. And late December is actually the International Maths Day. So we have a bunch of activities coming up. We are actually looking for volunteers who can help us over the weekend, maybe for about 3 to 4 hours, with both math education and science education. And with science education, actually it culminates with trips to our children to the planetarium and to the Indian Institute of Science. So we want to have groups of 5 children being accompanied by one of our NITK alumni volunteers and help these children dream big and achieve big. So those are a few updates on what is coming around the bend with NITK Sneha. Thank you, Sanjeet. And we all can be reached. The NITK Sneha team is growing, currently over 30 volunteers. Please feel free to reach out to us, and then we will let you know what how we all can make a difference together. Thank you. Thank you, Udupa.
Thank you, Ramkrishna sir. We'll now proceed to the. So I request all of you to take time out to listen to Rajgopal, CV Rajgopal. He is at Azim Premji University. I have 2 university connect with him. Both of us are NITK as well as connected to Azim Premji University. We go to the next item on the agenda now. May I request Mr. Basaraj Deodar to give a briefing on the Bangalore chapter?
Hi, good morning. It was a very insightful session. Thanks so much for bringing Mr. Kotian, to make us understand how the farming is, how we become more responsible listening to these kind of meeting sessions. So it is a wonderful session that most of us have gone through it. As Ramki was talking, it came to my mind. Ramki has some land, close to Bangalore, which I think he's not been cultivating or kept it as it is. Maybe that, if he's willing, should be used for a pilot project of organic farming. Kotian should, somebody will take as a volunteer and do up something up there. It's very, very interesting and will help many of us. Okay, coming back to Bangalore chapter, the last month, there was a session done by Rashekar and a few people over a kind of a dinner, a stay back kind of session. So that has led to a kind of the bigger session. Everyone has been enthused and they want to create a bigger meet. So in January month, the last week, 28th and 29th, there's a planning which has been in progress to create an entrepreneurs enclave. So this is most of us, who have been in a breakfast meeting from past 2 years. We're all, kind of, wanting to go out and meet and, network with the people. This is what we've been trying to do it. So this entrepreneurs enclave will certainly help us to network and try to take this breakfast meeting to another level where, it can translate into a kind of a quicker businesses and networking purposes, especially like a person like Shashikant. We do not know. So he's been doing a wonderful job out there. But sessions like this, which will bring him to a limelight and see how exactly it can be made use of. So that is in the progress. So that's what we've been trying to do it. And also, this time we were planning to have our the breakfast meeting offline, in our well-known venue of Century Club. But again, still, we're not totally come out of this pandemic, and people feel, we'll run it one more session offline and then move on. Probably, the next one, if Sanjit is back to Bangalore and if he finds time, along with Udupa and Aparna sir, we will try certainly get back to a Century Club offline session. This is the second thing which we are planning. So, apart from this, Nitk housing colony work is in progress. So I'm also running to meet someone on the same, purpose right now. Rashagri is coming from other end. So, things slowly that we'll try to bring back to a situation where that we will meet in person and we'll try to enhance our spirit of Nitk as well as networking business activities as such. Thank you so much for the time and have a good day, good week ahead. In fact, thank you so much. Over to you, Sanjit.
Thank you, Basavaraj sir. May I all request you to now switch on your cameras for a group photo. Udupa sir, can you stop sharing? I give you a few seconds. Please switch on your cameras. Yeah. I think we've captured. May I now request Aparna Kotri sir to.
Yes, sir. We thank both the keynote speakers, Mr. Shankar Kotian and Shashikant. Shankar Kotian gave really great insights into farming, and he's really a great scientist, soil scientist. We really got to know a lot of things about farming and soil mechanics, soil and everything. And about Shashikant, he really gave, he's trying to do end-to-end service to farmers to grow profitably, increase their income, and then also farm to fork, that kind of concept he's taking. And then he's also, taking very less commission, and then he's trying to build his organization. Very nice. Nice to know about these things happening in our Nitk community. Thanks to Sanjit for carrying over this breakfast meet. He's a great anchor. And thanks to everybody. In the morning, you all joined. And thanks to meet physically, possibly next month, December. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Kotri, sir. Yeah, this is Udupa. And thanks to the coordinator of the month, Mr. Sanjit. As always, he does a wonderful job. So thanks, Sanjit. Thank you very much. And going further on our agenda for the next topic, it is actually we have covered most of the things with AgriTech, and only thing next in the line is data analytics. But it is a very vast topic. We will see how we can make it very interesting, narrow down to maybe some topic. So we will come back to you with the more details. It will be around data analytics, but something new in that. Thank you very much, and let us meet. And thanks to Mr. Basavaraj sir for giving the update, and speakers, everyone. Thank you,
Udupa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
See you the next month.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Great work.
Everyone. Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Thank you,
Very much.
Shankar.
Work.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shashi. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.